Thank you all for coming this evening. For Hadiya Pendleton and her family, I'm happy to report that we have filed charges approved by the State's Attorney's Office in the murder of Hadiya, which we all know happened a couple of weeks ago, also resulting in the subsequent shooting of two other individuals at that scene. As we've all heard over the past 2 weeks, Hadiya was an energetic, bright, and driven young lady with determination and potential. She was destined for great things. Hadiya knew of the torment of gangs and what they cause, the havoc that they cause in our communities, and she spoke out against it, as we all saw in the video that has been widely published. Sadly, Hadiya's life was cut far too short by the unconscionable actions of two criminals who have been charged this evening. They are Michael Ward, W-A-R-D, 18 years old, and Kenneth Williams, 20 years old. Both were arrested Saturday night near 67th and King Drive. Both are charged with 1 count of murder, 2 counts of attempted murder, 2 counts of aggravated battery with a firearm. While we received a lot of tips in this particular case, and the community really stepped up and tried to help us, I'm sad to point out that we did not get our target audience to step up. The community provided a lot of tips. None of them panned out, nor did they lead to closure in this particular case. However, I can't say enough about the men and women who are standing up here today. If they look a little tired and if they collapse, that's because they've been working 24 hours, 7 days a week since this incident occurred. And it was their stubbornness, their hard work that has brought us to this point through interviews, re-interviews, some technical capabilities that we use. And as a result, these two individuals are charged. Michael Ward has confessed and indicated that Hadiya was not the intended target. In fact, the offenders had it all wrong. They thought the group they shot into included members of a rival gang. Instead, it was a group of upstanding, determined kids who, like Hadiya, were repulsed by the gang lifestyle. The two offenders circled Harsh Park on January 29th and saw the group hovering for shelter from the rain. They parked the car, and Ward crept up on foot, spraying gunfire into the group, striking Hadiya and the other two teens. The offenders fled, but with the persistence of our investigators, they have now been taken off of our streets. They were attempting to retaliate for a previous shooting where Williams was shot in July of this year. And just to kind of complete the circle, in that shooting, we made an arrest. Williams refused to prosecute that arrest. It was a rival gang that fired at Williams, and this was the retaliation from Williams and Ward back at that particular gang. So here's a case where our investigators, again, did a great job. They bring these guys in, they make the arrest, and they end up walking out the door because we do not have a complainant that's going to help us prosecute. And as if the story couldn't get any worse, ladies and gentlemen, it did. Because this incident did not have to occur. Michael Ward was arrested last year, and in January of 2012, he was arrested in 2011 for UUW, unlawful use of a firearm. And if mandatory minimums existed in the state of Illinois, Michael Ward would not have been on the street to commit this heinous act. He pled guilty in January of 2012 and was sentenced to 2 years probation. When we talk about mandatory minimums, we're talking about saving lives. I pointed it out to some of you who may have been there this morning. This morning we gave you 7 examples, 3 shooters and 4 victims, who all, the 4 victims would be alive today, and the 3 shooters would not have been on the street to commit those murders if mandatory minimums were in existence in the state of Illinois for unlawful use of a firearm. This has to stop. Gun offenders have to do significant jail time. Criminals have to be held accountable. And there has to be a certainty of punishment when we arrest somebody with an illegal firearm. And I'm saying illegal because don't let it get caught up in the gun debate. This is about illegal firearms, not legal firearms. Offenders like this cannot be given the opportunity to strike again. To Hadiya's family, her parents, I spoke to Nate a little while ago. They're in Washington, D.C. right now, and they will be at the President's State of Address tomorrow. They have been rocks in support of us during this particular investigation. They've handled it with grace and dignity. And the fact is, when I first met Cleopatra, the first things that we talked about was what would be the legacy of their daughter. And perhaps the legacy that could perhaps change the way that things happen in the state of Illinois is what's going to happen based on this case. These men and women who brought this case to this point, I just can't say enough about. While we were all under pressure to ensure that we got this case closed, it had to be done right. This was one of the most methodical, practical, plotting investigations I've seen. As I said, it was not broken on a tip. There was considerable surveillance that was done. The gang investigations guys, as you could see, they're still dressed for the street. These guys were out there doing the surveillances while the detectives were doing the interviews, the telephone work, and all the work that needed to be done to bring us to this point. Keep the Pendleton family in your thoughts and your prayers. And let's make sure that we pay attention to what happens from here, not what we've done so far.